This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 362. Yes, I did look it up before today's episode. In today's episode, we have our special guest. We have Lewis from English with Lewis. He is much more famous than me. You've probably heard of him. He is from the UK, which is, I must admit, always nice. Always nice to talk to another Brit, I must admit. Someone that fully understands how much of a horrible place the UK is. Because in today's episode, we were supposed to talk about Belgium because Lewis lives in Belgium. However, in the first part of the podcast, we actually don't talk about Belgium. But he has a very interesting life. So we talk about places that he's lived. I kind of see Lewis as someone like me. You're not your average Brit. Maybe that's what I'm going to call this episode, actually. I've literally just thought of that. And we really hit it off, which is a lovely piece of vocabulary. Had a very good relationship immediately, let's say. So I'm going to stop talking now and let you listen to this conversation with not your average Brit. Happy listening. Hello, Lewis, and welcome to Rock and Roll English.
My pleasure. It's great to be here, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Glad to hear it. Because I always say for a podcast episode, I always do 5 minutes research. Maybe I did 10 minutes research for this one. But I noticed you've lived quite an interesting life. I mean, number one, you're from the north of England, which is a strange thing anyway. People up there are...
What are you trying to say?
So the standard, I suppose, stereotype for people like me in the south is that people in the north, it's just raining more than it's raining here. And life is terrible. Is that true?
Well, I don't live in the north of England anymore, so maybe.
Right.
But I mean, the north, it's got a lot going for it. There are a lot of positives, in my opinion, at least. I think the cities in the north, of course, maybe they're not as beautiful in terms of culture and heritage as places like Bath or Cambridge or Oxford, but you've got some nice northern powerhouses in Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Newcastle, which are all kind of industrial cities and university cities. The cost of living is much better, as in much cheaper. And
definitely,
we have lots of natural areas. We've got the Yorkshire Dales, we've got the Pennines, we've got the Lake District. So hopefully I'm selling the north in a nice way, but I must admit, since becoming an adult and going to university in Liverpool, I haven't lived in England. So maybe there's some reason to that.
Well, so like lots of the cities you just mentioned there, like Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle. I've never been to Leeds, actually. But all of those cities, like I've been to all of those cities. However, normally on some kind of stag do. So I'm not sure if I was really kind of, seeing like all the culture and soaking up all of that kind of vibe. It was more of just... So I actually went to Cambridge last weekend, and I'd been there on a stag do recently, about 6 years ago. And when I was in Cambridge, I was like, oh my God, it's so nice here. Because when we were on the stag do, we just spent all our time in a dark, dingy pub.
As you do,
Yeah. As the classic Brit does. However, I've noticed that you are not the classic Brit because, let's face it, the classic Brit, I mean, number one, never speaks a foreign language. I mean, how many Brits do you know that speak a foreign language?
Not very many, unless maybe their parents are from another country or they were born elsewhere. But like if you are, let's say, the stereotypical Brit, you're usually not going to be interested in any of the foreign languages at all, to the extent that when I was in secondary school, like grammar school, I think out of 300 people in our year, there were maybe 17 of us that decided to study Spanish, and Spanish was more popular than French and German, as you might be able to imagine. But like that shows the lack of interest in foreign languages for normal Brits.
Yeah. So I also didn't study a language at school. I did until you could choose, and then I chose not to, because I blame the system, though. I always say. I mean, obviously, I was an idiot. I'm not gonna lie here.
But it wasn't my fault.
Yeah, I was a total idiot when I was a teenager. That is true. However, I still blame the system of not making it seem important. The system basically says, if you're English, just speak slowly. And I noticed as well how English people, when talking to a foreigner, like to speak with incorrect grammar and say things like, you go shop today? You like this? And that's, I think, what we're taught to do in school. Like that is the extent of foreign language learning.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, just because this is fresh in my memory, because I watched a video about it yesterday, technology now is maybe going in a direction where we don't even need to feel bad about not speaking any other foreign languages, because now you've got all these instant translations, so people don't necessarily need to learn foreign languages, which personally I disagree with. But that means your classic ignorant Englishman can feel proud with his AirPods in and just have a fluent conversation.
Yeah. The worry about that is that we'll be out of a job as well, won't it?
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it.
Exactly. I'll just cut that bit out. Yeah. There is no technology. You always need English teachers, okay? There is no technology that will teach you how to speak a foreign language.
No.
Yeah, no, that obviously is true. However, I think that we will survive, because I hope not English people, they're the worst of the worst, but other people, I hope, would still like to be able to speak a foreign language themselves, because there is something about it, isn't it? I mean, even now, sometimes I have a conversation on the phone in Italian, and then I've done this numerous times. I end the call and I see the time, and it was like, I don't know, 18 minutes, and I think, wow, I just spoke for 18 minutes in a foreign language. Like, I sort of look around, I was like, does anyone want to sort of congratulate me on that? Like, someone should be clapping me here, shouldn't they?
Just give yourself a pat on the back. But I imagine those 18 minutes probably felt like a lot more, because when you're speaking a foreign language, it can kind of take it out of you, and it makes your social battery maybe run out much faster than if you're speaking your mother tongue. So it's like, oh, what? Only 18 minutes? Felt like I was speaking for an hour.
Well, I had that more in the early days, definitely. But however, that like you said, your sort of general energy, that still happens to me now. So when I was in Sicily recently, and it's spending days and days without even saying a word of English, and then you're like, oh God, I just can't do this anymore. I can't. Just don't talk. Just no one talk to me, please.
Basta.
Exactly. Yeah. Please, no one talk to me. But there we go. So, one other thing I wanted to mention. Another thing that I just want to put out there, just to talk about someone to congratulate me. And I know you are a football fan as well. When I was a child, one of my first, I suppose, heroes was, I'll say it in an English way, Roberto Baggio, the Italian footballer from the '94 World Cup. And I listened to a podcast with him the other day, and it was like 2 hours. And I thought, God, I just listened to a podcast of Roberto Baggio speaking Italian. Like, my God, if someone had told me that in 1994, my God, I wouldn't have been able to believe it.
You've made it. You've made it in life.
That is exactly what I thought. And then I sort of started questioning why I started learning Italian. And I thought, maybe it was just to understand Roberto Baggio. That is why.
To get to this point in life. And now you can listen to so many other podcasts of famous Italian footballers as well.
So
listen to Paolo Maldini talk about whatever. and you can have a great time.
It's funny you say that because obviously the algorithms of social media work in the way they do. And literally yesterday, a Paolo Maldini one came up and I thought, that is a bit of me. That is a bit of me.
My Friday night sorted.
Yeah, a bit of Paolo. A quick story on Paolo Maldini I just thought I would share just because it popped into my mind. I remember being at university and my friend worked at Burton's. Do you remember Burton's, the shop?
Yeah, I remember buying jeans from Burton's when I was like 14 or 15.
Yeah, well, it wasn't really the coolest shop. But anyway, he worked there and we were in H&M and there was a Paolo Maldini range of clothes and we all thought, oh, God, yes, like a bit of Paolo. Like a Paolo Maldini T-shirt, I'll have a bit of that. And then my friend said, well, in Burton, there's a Michael Owen range. And now, if people may not understand that joke, but Michael Owen has always been known as let's face it, a boring bastard. And we were like, well, if I had a choice between Paolo Maldini range and Michael Owen, even the names, you don't need to tell me anything else, just say the names. So I think I'll go for the Paolo Maldini one, thanks.
I can't believe that H&M landed that collaboration.
Oh, God,
like,
yeah.
If you imagine, like, being Paolo Maldini, waking up one day, getting a call off your agent, being like, oh, I've got a really interesting business proposal for you. So there's a clothes shop that really want a range in your name, and it's H&M. And Paolo's like, come on, I've made it.
Yeah, actually saying that, you would think sort of the level he was at, he would have like, Giorgio Armani or something like that. I think he would have been a bit gutted when he got the call just from H&M. But I'm sure he got over it. I'm sure he did. So as well, again, you're not the normal Brit. So as I said, you're from the north, which is already strange for me. But you've lived in Spain, you've lived in Italy, and currently living in Belgium. Is that right? Any other countries I've missed there?
That's right, but there are a couple that I could kind of add. I don't know whether they really count or not.
How long did you live in these countries?
So that's the question. Like, but Australia, I think, counts because I did the typical English thing where you go for a year abroad on a working holiday visa in Australia. Yeah. I managed to convince my back then girlfriend, now fiance, to come with me because all of my mates were going over that year. And this was when I thought that maybe that ship had already sailed because a lot of people do it when they're 18, 19, 20. But this was when I was 24, I think. So I spent 1 year living in Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne, and teaching English at the same time.
To Australians, I imagine, that don't know how to speak English.
G'day, mate. But I was actually surprised with this because my idea was to go there and just, live an experience, travel around, meet people, have a good time with my mates. And when I arrived, I was like, oh, actually, there are loads of like English language academies because there are lots of people who go there to study and work. Right. And because really all they want to do is work and earn money. So the Australian government kind of forces them to do some kind of course at the same time. Right. And many of these people are from maybe South America or different areas of Europe or Southeast Asia. So they need to improve their English at the same time. Yeah. So that counts as well.
But did they ask, as you were in Australia, to teach them with an Australian accent? And every time you talk, it sounds like you're asking a question where they say, for example, I like your hat, mate.
Should we put another shrimp on the barbie, mate? It's funny because my uncle is actually Australian. Well, he's English. He was born in a small town near Leeds, just like me as well, but moved to Australia like 35 years ago. Okay. So now he's got this strange Aussie twang, which is a bit weird. It's a bit annoying as well because he often says that you can find everything you want in Australia. It's like, come on, mate, give it a rest. But But yeah, I guess you could say that I've kind of got a tiny bit of Aussie in me, not
Right.
in my blood, but in the connections I have through my uncle.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, he's a bit of Aussie in me because my uncle moved there. Uh, I remember a friend actually who used to tell me he had some like Argentinian blood, and it turned out his granddad lived there for a few years. And I used to say it was because his granddad went there on holiday, and he used to tell people that he had some Argentinian blood because his granddad went on a 2-week holiday.
Well, I'm claiming it. I'm claiming
Well,
it.
your uncle is on a 35-year holiday, you said, so that is quite a long holiday,
And he's married to an Aussie, and
right?
my cousins are actually British Aussie.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
say that I'm a little bit Aussie at the same time.
And I also like how your uncle seems to have living in Australia. I always think like Australia and America, they have this kind of like, I don't know, they see a more positive outlook on life. And so, like you said there, your uncle was saying like, you can do anything you want. And your immediate reaction was like, give it a rest, mate. Because us Brits have just got that cynical like outlook on life. It's like, who do you think you are? Like, shut up, give it a rest.
No, 100%. Like this week in my classes, we've been speaking about describing people. And it's funny because the first question that I ask my students is, I know I'm going to put you on the spot, but could you describe your personality? What adjectives would you use? And I'll always kind of mention that Americans would absolutely love this.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you ask them to describe themselves, like, well, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but yeah, I'm amazing.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you would if you ever say something like that in Britain, like people would just think like, get out. Yeah, not having this. Okay, so we've got now on your list. So obviously from the north, which I keep mentioning, which
Yeah, northern monkey, as southern fairies often say.
So you know what that term, I suppose, southern fairies, I think is quite true. I think it like having spent time with northern monkeys, and with like my group of friends, we often get the feeling that we are like fairies in comparison to them. So that is one stereotype, which I would say is not too far away from the truth.
I mean, I'm a little bit of a fairy with some things as well.
Right. Okay.
I'm a bit scared of spiders, which you can imagine going to Australia didn't end well.
Yeah.
And I've got a weird thing, which is that when I see a bit of food that has been like crushed or like splattered, or maybe somebody else has like eaten a little bit of it and then they've put it away, I don't know what it is and why this happens, but when I see this kind of like dodgy, messy food, it makes me want to gip and throw up, which I think is a bit of a like wimpy fairy thing to have. So
just on that, you don't have children, do you?
no, I don't.
I would think long and hard if you want to do that, because I have got crushed up pieces of food all around my house, in my car, like sometimes in my pocket. Sometimes they just like put something in their mouth and then just sort of just shove it in my pocket. So just think about that for later in life, okay?
I mean, I would like to have a family, and I've got a nephew who's like a year and a half, 2 years old now, and he's adorable, he's amazing, but he's not the best eater. He's a bit of a picky, fussy eater. And when I was trying to help him out, you know, doing the typical, the airplane's coming, then he wants to feel like I'm doing the same thing. So he'll grab some of his food, often like pureed stuff, and then he'll try a bit and he'll give it to me to eat. And that's where I draw the line. I'm like, no, I can help, but I'm not eating that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So uncle duties. Well, I was an uncle before being a father, and that's you see the good bits when you're done the uncle duties, because like you said, you can draw lines and you say, right, you know, you just give it back to like your brother or your sister or whatever and say you get on with it. Difficult to give your own children away is what I would say. So, also on that though, so the reason I said is you don't have children because I know you are engaged to a Spanish girl. Mm-hmm. So on the list, so we've got Spain. So Australia, I think we can definitely count Australia. You've definitely lived there a year, I think. Definitely, yeah. Anywhere else on the list?
Argentina, I could maybe say. Like your mate who's...
How long was your holiday?
But during my year abroad, before I went and did my Erasmus in Sicily, I did the first half of my year abroad in a small city in the south of Buenos Aires, which was called Bahia Blanca.
Okay.
And I worked in a school there as like a teaching assistant, and I lived with an Argentinian family. And that was for around 6 months, so the same amount of time as my Erasmus in Palermo. So I guess I kind of count these two, even though
I would count that. I would
nowadays
definitely
6 months, it's nothing. So to sum up, I'd say Argentina, Italy, Australia, and then really Spain for 5-6 years, where I plan to return in the future. Let's see what happens. And Belgium, where I've been living for the last 2.5-3 years almost.
Belgium, I mean, I suppose Australia as well. But I mean, Australia, you've got the English connection there, and then you've obviously got Spain, Argentina connected by language. Well, you've got Palermo, which, obviously being in Italy. But Belgium seems a bit left field. Where's that one come from? Okay, so we are going to find out in the R&R family episode why Lewis has chosen to live in Belgium, because remember the first part of the podcast was supposed to be about Belgium. We didn't get onto it, so that's what we're going to do in the R&R family membership area, which will go on tomorrow. You will be able to listen to that podcast. If you're interested in joining, remember there are more than 1,000 extra episodes to listen to. But let's now have a look at the vocab from today. Lewis said the north of England has a lot going for it, so lots of good things, let's say. And I mentioned when I visited these northern cities in the past, I wasn't really soaking up the culture. So think of a sponge soaking water up. That wasn't me. I wasn't soaking up the culture of these northern cities. We spoke about a dark, dingy pub. Always a great way to describe a pub. Dark and dingy, like not very nice. And then Lewis said, as you do, like a normal thing that you do, let's say. He also said that speaking a foreign language can take it out of you, a lovely term. When it takes it out of you, it drains your energy. It makes you tired, basically. And he said that I had made it in life when I listened to a podcast with Roberto Baggio. So that meaning you have reached the best point of your life, let's say. And then I said I saw one with Paolo Maldini, and I said that's a bit of me, like that is for me. Lewis also mentioned how his uncle has a strange Aussie twang. Now this word twang we use when someone's accent is kind of changing, like his uncle, for example, has a British accent, but some things said in an Australian accent. That is an Australian twang. And speaking of his uncle, he said, come on, mate, give it a rest. A lovely piece of vocabulary, a lovely term, which means just stop it. Stop being so positive. As we mentioned, us Brits have a very cynical outlook on life, always thinking the worst. So, again, how much of a wonderful place Britain is. And we said, anyone from the UK that describes themselves as wonderful, anyone else in the UK would say, look, I'm not having this. I am not having this. I'm not accepting this, basically. And then Lewis spoke about with his nephew, that's where he draws the line. So draws the line to say, that's enough. No, I'm not doing that. And I also mentioned right at the end, Belgium seems a bit left field, like a bit strange in comparison to all of the other countries. So we are going to explore that tomorrow. Thanks a lot for listening. I will see you all very soon. But in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.